Kat, if you could play our theme on that thing, I'd let you play it.
I was just wishing I knew the notes.
I'll send you the sheet music. Welcome back to another episode of 1980s Now, a weekly examination of the importance of 1980s pop culture and its influence today. My name's Will, and joining me, as always, are my friends and co-hosts, Kat and John. Hey, guys.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
If you're going to have a ukulele, Kat, I think John's got to bust out a tuba. Play the bass for you.
Is that what he played in band? I'm trying to remember. Tuba?
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
A ukulele and a tuba jamming together. I'd love to hear that.
On today's show, we'll review current news stories related to 1980s media, including the best episode of Secret Level is Pac-Man.
What?
We'll talk about it, Kat. It's
okay,
just,
yeah. Okay, I have questions.
Stephen King shutters his radio stations. Popeye. One of the most beloved cartoon characters, too. I think all of us. We've talked about him so many times on the show. He's out for blood. Milli Vanilli. Turns out Milli Vanilli wanted to give their Grammy back.
Big of them.
And the controversial Christmas horror Silent Night, Deadly Night turns 40 years old. And I want to just, when we talk about that, I just have a question. Like, what is the nexus between horror and Christmas, or any joyous occasion in horror, I guess? Anyway, there's
I have a theory.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I look forward to hearing it.
Me too.
There's time codes in the notes if you'd like to skip around. Otherwise, before we get started, just very, very quickly. Hey, if you didn't get a chance to hear me on Mr. Throwback Thursday live last week, the show is live now. So go check it out. To go to Mr. Thursday Third Back. You know what? Pick any words you want. Just put them in there. Maybe I'm on it.
He does get around.
But if you put Mr. Throwback Thursday in your search, I was on that show. I was on that show last week. Check it out. All right. I think that's all right. Let's see. This, that. We're going to do those things later. That's that. All right, cool. All right. Hey, let's get started on 1980s news. Hey, this week in 1980s news, as reported by Variety, the best episode of Secret Level is Pac-Man. So Amazon's new 15-episode adult animated anthology, Secret Level, features original stories set within the worlds of various games. And most of them are video games, with one super cool exception. These run the gamut from classic 80s games to today's complex tactical titles. But they're adapted in somewhat surprising ways. And the best example of it is episode 6 called Pac-Man Circle. It's just a little over 10 minutes long, Kat, so you could watch it really quickly. It's available on Amazon Prime.
Prime, okay.
They've turned this game, this sort of, entree into arcade games from the early 1980s into this haunting retelling of what you just imagine as a circle eating dots being chased by ghosts. I mean, I try not to spoil anything, but it's something else.
Oh, I'm so curious.
Technically, the elements are there. You have a sphere that opens and closes and eats. Ghosts exist. The maze exists. And then you throw out every other expectation you have because it goes off the rails.
Wait.
I think it would have been a fun experiment, right? If you didn't know what video games inspired each of them. Now, it wouldn't make it as marketable. Like I immediately went to watch these because of I watched the ones with the games that I love, right?
Right. Of course.
But it would have been fun to say to somebody, watch this, and then afterwards say, okay, what retro game does this remind you of? Now, there's again, no spoilers. Maybe it comes clear by the end, but most of the episode, you'd be like, what the fuck is this? But it is fantastic. The animation is great. The storytelling is fantastic. It follows, just I guess briefly, the story follows a floating gold orb that's actually voiced by the Mandalorian actor Emily Swallow, who does the armorer, they call her, the one that makes the armor.
Oh, yes.
She does the voice. Yeah, and she's
awesome.
And she at the very beginning, she is encouraging this humanoid creature, though it's alien like to us, to I don't think this is a spoiler, to kill and eat everything around them in order to escape the maze.
You must eat or you will die, which is what you do in Pac-Man, right? You eat or die.
You
right?
eat or you die.
Yeah, according to Secret Level creator Tim Miller, who's the guy who gave us Deadpool and he directed Deadpool, he directed Terminator, Dark Fate. Pac-Man is a really disturbing game. He says, quote, it's eat or be eaten. It's in the DNA. I mean, like John's pointing out, just that when you boil it down to that, that's dark.
Yeah. I never really thought about it that way, honestly.
You know what I found particularly interesting the more you know about Pac-Man, and I'll continue to not spoil it, is that we tend to think of the enemies in Pac-Man as ghosts because they have a little drapey bottom, and we call them ghosts. We just have. But they weren't initially. They were initially called monsters.
Okay.
And then because of their appearance, we then started nicknaming them ghosts, and that stuck. Even to the cartoons, but they somehow blend those two things in. Like, that is a ghost, but then when you see it fully in the light, you're like, but it's attached to a monster, kind of? Like, what? Like, they even... Yeah. Pac-Man is harvesting entities for his repetition and practice. I don't know.
Yeah,
and
it's
oh, my goodness.
Awesome.
It's deep. It's deep. You should
And
definitely check
it's
it
only
out.
10 minutes?
Yeah. Each of these episodes is just about 10 minutes.
Okay.
Give or take.
All right.
But as far as making this, adapting this otherwise, think of a sort of a, I don't know, frivolous arcade game into this sort of, philosophical, existential, short film. Miller's team doesn't take full credit for the twist that they put on it. Instead, series executive producer and supervising director Dave Wilson credits Pac-Man creators Bandai. Wilson said, quote, I'd love to take sole credit for why the Pac-Man episode is as troubling as it is.
Troubling.
But we got on a call with Bandai early on, and the literal mission statement from them translated was, and I guess he means literally translated, right? As in from the Japanese?
Yeah, right.
Translated was, we would like audiences to wonder what the fuck we did to Pac-Man. Mission accomplished.
They made him a sociopath. It's fantastic.
It wasn't until Secret Level head writer J.T. Petty went away for the weekend and came back with the almost final script in hand that Wilson and Miller say they had a story worthy of what Bandai had tasked them with. And the episode per Wilson is, quote, faithful from script to final pixel, end quote. So little changes. He continues saying, quote, I think we got one note from Bandai, which was there's a UGSF on the back of the character's cloak that they asked us to add. But other than that, they let us do exactly the way you see it. Let us do it exactly the way you see it, end quote.
Wow.
John, I noticed that writing. I didn't know what it was.
I don't either.
I had to go
It
hunting.
doesn't jump to mind.
Did you find out what it means?
Is it the corporate DNA? I don't recognize it from the game. It's not initials of
It
characters.
turns out in 1990, during the development of Galaxian 3, they decided to create this world that they referred to as UGSF, the United Galaxy Space Force. So they essentially created a fictional world that they have crowbarred all of their video games into somehow.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
And this world became the foundation to their outlook, future development of and prior development of their video games. Since then, the UGSF series have unfurled new frontiers within this world, but they've also used characters from prior games. They've squeezed them into new games to create a sort of, shared universe. One example I have here is that characters from Dig Dug and Star Ixiom appear in the puzzle game Mr. Driller.
Sure.
So they started doing more and more things like that to establish this larger world.
How did I never know that? Now, I obviously I noticed the weird, symbols and iconography appearing in other games, but I'm just like, it's Namco.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was the Namco cinematic universe that they were building.
Yeah. And there's a website you can go to, ugsf-series.com. It doesn't look like it's been updated in a few years, but like the mission statement of the website, it says like this is the documentation for the unspoken world of it. So the fact that you don't know about it, I'm not surprised. Apparently it's not something probably appears in any manual, or any stories that they publish related to this.
So why was it important to put in there?
Well, the suggestion is this UGSF is a space world, and the look and feel of this episode is somewhere that's not Earth. So that's my guess.
It's kind of tonally, it's like a blending of like a zombie movie and an alien.
Oh, okay.
Alien the film, not a random
Yes.
alien, not, nanu, but yeah, it's dark and gritty and greasy and bloody and and it's Pac-Man.
Yeah. Oh.
Do-do-do-do.
Well, maybe I'll show it to my wife and just see if I can. What do you think this is based on?
Right, have her watch, don't show the title, have her watch it without
Right.
knowing what's going on, right?
I don't know if she'd get through all the viscera, when he's fighting and eating, because he eats. He's got to eat or be eaten. He eats.
Is your wife a vegan? Is that why she wouldn't like it?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Doesn't eat ghosts.
Because they're
Whatever
eating meat.
Whatever doesn't eat ghosts is, that's what she is.
What is that?
A paranormal investigator, maybe?
Who are you going to call?
Yeah.
Meat Busters.
Yeah. I beat my meat or I bust my meat.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
I beat it and then I buzzed it. I don't know.
Bit of a,
Busting makes me feel good, guys.
you got to tenderize it before you understand.
It's so hard. I got to soften it up.
Not ready yet.
Yeah, that's ironic. Hey, if you don't care for Pac-Man, in addition to that game, Secret Level also includes episodes inspired by Warhammer, Unreal Tournament, and Dungeons & Dragons. And it also boasts an impressive lineup of actors across its season 1 episodes, including Arnold Schwarzenegger, Kevin Hart, Keanu Reeves, and Tamora Morrison. 8 of the 15 episodes that we're going to be able to see are available on Amazon Prime right now.
Woo.
Marcus says, I love that Cat went with the 2600 Pac-Man fanfare. Wait, what was that, Cat? What does that sound like?
Do-do-do-do.
Oh.
Do-do-do-do. Bonk, 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 bonk.
Bonk, bonk, bonk. Yep.
Okay, hey, in other 1980s news per Billboard, Stephen King sends his main radio stations to the dead zone. The prolific horror author has announced he will kill off his cluster of money-losing radio stations in Maine, WZON, WKIT, and WZLO, on December 31st. So hurry up and listen.
Wow.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Turns out King and his wife Tabitha have owned these stations for 41 years. When he was still a young and up-and-coming author in his mid-30s, they bought WLBZ in 1983, renaming it WZON. You see it in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Paying homage to the 1970 novel, The Dead Zone.
Zon.
The Dead Zone. Yeah, I wonder.
Dead Zon, man.
Yeah, I wonder how they do like the to check the rate. What do they call that, John? Station check or air check or
The station ident. Wherever they go.
Station ID. Yeah.
You're listening to WZON, The Dead Zone, or something.
Yeah,
Right? They're going to do one of
cool.
those deals.
Yeah.
You're listening to WZON, the Zon.
That'd be very Star Trek of them to call it Zon. That'd be great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a deep cut for Trek fans.
Look it up. Do some work.
I'm telling you.
Despite King's passion for radio and his efforts to maintain local and independent stations, the 3 stations have consistently lost money, with King personally covering the deficits. And this may be why he's losing money, because WZON is on the AM dial at 620. Now, that may be the bad news. The good news, it plays retro radio. So maybe retro radio sounds fantastic over whatever compressed amount of signal audio quality you get through AM radio. WKIT is 100.3 FM. Isn't that what Z100 is in New York? 100.3, I think.
Yeah, 100.3.
I think so.
Yeah.
That's branded
It
as
is.
Stephen King's rock station, and WZLO at 103.1 FM is Maine's adult alternative. King cites financial losses and his advancing age. He's healthy. He's 77, but he's still healthy. But that's the reasons he's offered for his shutting down the stations. He expressed pride in being a local owner and gratitude for the staff and local advertisers who supported the station.
It was upon reading this article that I first learned that Stephen King owned radio stations.
Yeah.
That was going to be my question. Was this a widely known thing that Stephen King was a terrestrial radio aficionado and had stations?
Why would you know if you didn't live in Maine? I mean, it's not like they're going to advertise in Dubuque, right? Just listen, next time you're in Maine. They're not going to do that. So,
Yeah, I don't imagine the strength of the signal got very far.
No.
In spite of having a great, frequency, 100.3 and 103.1, that's pretty decent. But yeah, I don't think it reaches outside of Bangor.
Yeah.
But King said, while radio across the country has been overtaken by giant corporate broadcasting groups, I've loved being a local independent owner over all these years. Contrary to its, look, we've talked about this before, but contrary to its stated intention of allowing more businesses to operate in the communication space, the actual result of the Telecommunications Act of 1996 was the opposite. There was a flurry of mergers and acquisitions, and corporate and media giants, just swooped in and bought out many small local broadcasters. And if you remember, and we talked about this a while ago, I don't remember, but we talked about radio in the 80s. They then, most recently, have been arguing for a law that would allow them to buy even more stations. Like they don't have enough.
I'm thinking about the retro radio station that he ran. And like you were saying, depending on what music they played, what if it wasn't music? Like how retro was it? Like were they playing like 30s radio shows or something?
Right.
I mean, that sounds spectacular on AM radio.
Right. Like the Shadow, right? The Shadow Knows.
Right. Yeah. Lum and Abner, Figure McGee and Molly, Gildersleeve, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be cool. I would love that. Yeah. And it probably, I imagine somebody's doing it. Although then you probably have licensing, more money. He's got more money he's got to shell out licensing these different properties.
I wonder how that works. I mean, isn't that outside of like the range of copyright unless someone's reclaimed it? Only the Shadow, I think, has been reclaimed by Condé Nast, and the rest are like, they're now, 80 years old or something.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about copyright in a minute here.
Yeah, but that's why I don't run a radio station. Among other reasons.
Yeah, that's the reason.
That's it.
Let's see. Kurt the Daring says, I seem to remember hearing late 80s, early 90s, King was so fed up with what the local radio station played, he bought it so he could play whatever he wanted to hear. Yeah. Now look, now that we've got streaming, had it happened now, right? He probably would have been like, well, I got it on my phone. What do I need?
Right.
Using so much money. And Doug says, I lived in Maine 20 years ago and never knew about his stations.
Wow.
Huh. And had been running for 40 years. So you had a chance, right?
Yeah. Well, maybe it's the kind of thing as you're driving, you're just like, living on a fruit. And then the rest is the dead zone, is what it is. There's just this 1/4 of signal.
That should have been their advertising. Yeah. All throughout Maine at 140 watts. Everywhere else is in the dead zone. Dead zone.
Yeah.
Put me in Stephen's writer room. Like he needs me there.
I was going to say, wait, what?
I think that's
right. I'll show Stephen King how to write.
Yeah. I think that's his kitchen table, John. I think you're going to be in his kitchen.
John feeling especially confident about his writing skills.
All right, Steve.
Yeah. And move over. Hey, you sure you want to use that adjective? All right. Hey, another 1980s news per correct. Popeye is now an unstoppable killing machine. You can't stop him. Oh, now I'm realizing, like this Popeye horror stuff that's going on. It would be something if we've got to get in Bluto or Brutus or both, or they combine two guys together that have those unique names, Bluto and Brutus. Somehow in a science experiment, they create a giant thing that they call something, Bruto.
Exactly.
And only he could stop the unstoppable killing machine.
That'll be the next one. That's going to, be a spinoff.
Well, if you're wondering how the hell
sequel.
Sequel.
There's going to be. If you're wondering how the hell are they destroying the memory, the legacy of our, just adorable spinach-eating, burly, big four-armed, talk about bruising, what was it? Busting your meat.
Oh, my God.
And he's ambidextrous. It's got to be, right? Anyway, our favorite spinach-eating sailor is
with those forearms. Yeah.
He's set to join the ranks of other public domain cartoon characters who've been reimagined as bloodthirsty antagonists in new horror movies. This is a trend if you haven't been paying attention. For example, when Winnie the Pooh, Winnie the Pooh entered the public domain in 2022, enterprising filmmakers warped the property into Winnie the Pooh,
Blood and Honey.
Oh, bother.
But now he goes, oh, bother.
Yeah, it bothered him.
It's a demonic.
Did you guys watch that?
No.
Well,
it turns out that even though the reviews were terrible, I'm talking like 3% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, no.
It made money. So somebody was watching it.
Oh, my gosh.
And it made enough money to warrant a sequel. And in 2020, yes, I don't know what it's called, More Blood and Honey or Blood and Honey 2, something like that.
Something about Tigger.
Yeah.
Trigger.
The wonderful thing about Trigger.
Yes.
And in 2025, we'll see two other horror films from these same filmmakers based on Disney's Bambi and Peter Pan.
Ooh, Peter Pan. I can see, swooping in the window, slitting your throat, flying back out.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Sprinkle some fairy dust on you so your corpse floats away. No evidence.
Till like when it wears off and finally,
splat.
The hell?
It's raining dead dudes.
There could be a lot of havoc wreaked on in Neverland with the Lost Boys.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
That might be
yeah.
part of his crew, right? I would think.
They're all vampires.
Yeah. Put him in the writer's room. And then kick him out because that was a shite idea.
Get the hell out of here.
Brandon says Blood and Honey was the biggest bucket of shit ever.
Oh,
I think that's worse than Dumpster Fire, just on the scales.
it sure
Well, I
sounds
think
like
so.
it.
To be fair.
Right. Because you can combine them. You can have a flaming bucket of shit, but these are separate things.
Right, exactly. No,
Flaming.
we'll get there. Hang on, let me tell you about another movie first. Additionally, just when you think they've already desecrated so many wonderful characters from our childhood, an enterprising Canadian filmmaker created a horror comedy version of Steamboat Willie earlier this year after the first Mickey short entered the public domain. And in 2025, another studio is set to bring us a slasher version of the spinach chugging sailor Popeye.
So do you think less of me? I don't know if you can think less of me, but do you think less of me knowing that I'm kind of looking forward to this Popeye movie?
Never.
No, I don't, but
Something about it that I can already see them building a stupid mythology in the trailer. And it isn't just, oh, look, Popeye's become a killer. It's like, oh, they're weaving this new story of how he became Popeye because he's a pretty unnatural looking dude.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
If you think about it.
yeah.
He's some sort of a mutant, apparently. It's I won't spoil it. I'll let you enjoy the trailer if you haven't seen it, but I like that about it.
Yeah, and while this won't spoil it, we're talking about Popeye the Slayer Man.
Yes.
And here's a real brief synopsis that doesn't really give anything away, except maybe the overall premise. A group of friends sneak into an abandoned spinach canning factory to film a documentary on the legend of the Sailor Man, who is said to haunt the factory. That's a pretty good setup. I do like that setup.
There's a correction in there where somebody goes, "Are you talking about your pirate man again?" He's not a pirate man. He's a sailor man.
Sailor.
And then he's a sailor man. Makes it extra cute while you're being ominous. Why not just be a sailor? He's a sailor fella. And deadly.
I'm just a little concerned because we know how strong he is because he can squeeze the cans of spinach, right? No one
you should be concerned.
Yes.
Have you not seen the trailer?
No, I did. I watched it.
He squeezes things, Cat.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
And I guess to bring those special effects to life, this is encouraging. Per producer Jeff Miller, quote, "We went old school and focused on using real practical effects and not relying on CG for the gore. We're talking with very enthusiastic and interested buyers now," end quote. And I thought, well, it's probably cheaper too, right, Jeff? I mean, you probably can't afford good, but that's smart. Look, if you can't afford the budget to make convincing ILM level special effects, go practical because they're at least really exist in the world. And so we already buy into it somewhat, even if it looks campy.
Well, and you get an automatic potential audience of people who are just practical effects enthusiasts who are like, "Have you heard of this awful movie? It's all practical." I'm like, all right, I'll watch it. Right?
Yeah.
Even if it's bad, you're going to want to watch it to see, well, what did they do? How did they do it? It's an art form. It truly is.
It might be funny. Maybe I'll laugh at it. All the practical stuff.
Yeah.
Laugh at Popeye. To get you.
But wait, guys, there's more.
Okay.
Because in 2025, we're also going to see the release of Shiver Me Timbers.
What?
Another hack and slash film that sees our beloved sailor turn psychopath.
What? Now remember, Kat, Will is notorious for making shit up, so be careful.
I knew you wouldn't believe me. And you're going to believe me even less when I tell you the synopsis for it.
Okay, I'm ready. In
1986, Olive Oyl, her brother Castor, and friends go on a camping trip to see the meteor shower with Halley's Comet. But the night turns into horror as a meteor transforms Popeye into an unstoppable killing machine. With thrilling 80s slasher references and comedic twists, the film combines elements of horror and comedy in a fresh take on both genres. So we have Popeye the Slayer Man, and now we're talking about Shiver Me Timbers.
Shiver Me Timbers.
That's a good name for a Popeye horror movie.
It is, yeah.
But hang on. There's yet a third horror movie that will see Popeye put his bulbous forearms to diabolical work. Now, other than its title, which is Popeye, this one's called Popeye. Little is known about this production from ITN Studios. But yes, that brings us up to a whopping 3 films coming out next year. And by the way, they're coming out next year because Popeye enters the public domain as of January 1st next year. So they've already got a trailer out, or one has a trailer, or I think there's two trailers. There's two trailers. Slayer Man has a trailer as well. Sorry, Slayer Man has a trailer. Shiver Me Timbers has a trailer. The last one I mentioned, Popeye, there's some images out there. And they get, I think I listed them in the order of increasing production levels. But while they're sharing those things, they technically can't actually, publish this film. I mean, the trailer probably even runs a little bit afoul of copyright law already. Maybe it gets away as a parody, but as of January 1st, all bets are off. They can do whatever they want.
Wow.
So Slayer Man looks to be straight horror. As you described Shiver Me Timbers, that sounds like horror comedy. Any idea what this Popeye one is, or too early to know?
Yeah, no, we don't know anything about it other than having seen some images of it. And the Popeye in the last one looks more like a regular person. Like to John's point earlier, Slayer Man, he looks like the cartoon come to life.
Looks like Popeye.
In Shiver Me Timbers, I don't know if they show Popeye. I don't think they show him yet anyway. And the last one looks like just a guy with big forearms.
Okay.
Is there an overlap between Popeye fans and horror fans that would get people excited about this?
No,
I don't
think so.
I guess there was. We just didn't know about it, and it's coming out.
Horror is just the easiest genre to do if you don't know how to do movies, right? Because comedy takes work, drama takes work, musicals take work. Horror just needs to be gory and have a thread of a narrative. I think that's why independent filmmakers are like, I'm making an independent horror movie. It's a zombie thing. It's a whatever. I'm not saying it takes no skill, but on the sliding spectrum of not knowing what you're doing, you probably have a better chance of making a horror movie if you don't know how to do anything else.
Yeah, I guess I agree. It's probably way easier to scare someone with film than to make them laugh. Yeah, probably right.
Yep.
You could easily. Yeah, I was watching a movie recently. I can't remember what it was. I think it was Smile. There were so many jump scares in Smile that amount to nothing. They're just literally, and a lot of it is they just blast like this. I love the music, how they scored this with this weird mix of synths and other sounds. Just blast a chord, while they change this camera. There's like nothing there, but they do that like a dozen times.
Like you could just listen to the soundtrack, close your eyes, and you'd know when to be scared.
Yeah, that's true. You're right.
You can hear a building. Freak! And you're like, oh, everybody jumped. Let's jump together.
And leveraging Popeye in this way, or maybe not the other characters, but Popeye, it does remind me of what we're going to talk about in just a little bit. Horror films that use Santa, that leverage, Santa, or Santa as a stand-in for the villain. Anyway, here's the final. I feel like this is a warning. There's several other kiddie favorites that are set to hit the public domain in the next few years.
Oh, man.
Guaranteed we're going to see some, I don't know, horror films in the very least. Mickey's Dog Pluto, 2026. Goofy in 2028. Donald Duck in 2030. Porky Pig in 2031. That'll probably be an adult film. Daffy Duck in 2033. And even the Man of Steel, Superman himself, will be fair game, but that won't be until 2034.
I don't have to worry about that.
It's kind of complicated depending on when you created something. But I think all of these, because they were created before the act that passed in 1978, they fall under the 95 years. So, yeah, I think all of those do. So that's why those years are the milestones for that.
Do you think when Goofy comes into the PD that we'll be able to actually figure out what the hell he is finally?
Hey, our independent podcast is brought to you every week by folks just like you. So if you'd like to help us out, please follow us on the podcast platform you're listening to right now. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Share an episode on Facebook. All of these actions just take a moment and are 100% free. But if you'd like to chuck in a buck and help us keep publishing the show week after week, please visit us at 1980snow.com/support to find out how you can send us $1 or $2. And thank you so much. It means a lot.
Hey, next up in 1980s news per Entertainment Weekly, Milli Vanilli wanted to give the Grammy back. Fab Morvan, one half of the disgraced group, opened up to interview about his newest unexpected chapter in his life, which includes renewed interest in Milli Vanilli, thanks to it being used in the, what is it called? They did that movie about the Menendez brothers, that docu-series.
Was it like
Monsters?
Monsters?
It's called Monsters, maybe.
Yeah, Monsters.
Might have been. Yeah, it sounds, that rings true.
Anyway, the music was used in there, so apparently this has sparked a renewed interest in Milli Vanilli. In a good way, unlike, how their legacy, sort of followed, the legacy that followed them after February 21st, 1990. They had won the Best Artist at the 32nd Annual Awards Ceremony, beating out Nina Cherry, Soul to Soul, Indigo Girls, and Tone Loc. But not too long after that, they were revealed as a lip-syncing sham. Now, Morvan claims that at a 1990 press conference, he and Rob Pilatus, who's is now deceased, wanted to give back their trophy, but the press got ahead of them. Quote, "We did it to say we know we were wrong and we came here to let you know, hey, we want to give the Grammy back. That's what we wanted because we didn't think we deserved it and it didn't feel like it belonged in our house. But when we informed them that we were going to give it back, the Los Angeles Times told the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences, and then they jumped the gun." He wants to clear the record because, according to him, this is one of the biggest misconceptions about the group, that they had to have it taken from them, against their will, that they had some interest in keeping this Grammy that they knew they didn't otherwise deserve.
Like prying it from their fingers kind of implication.
Now, this raises an interesting question, I think, right? The controversy with these two guys is, and this happened a few times in the 1990s, this era, it doesn't happen too much now, I don't think, if at all, where you hired good-looking people to lip sync to songs that were created by a producer in a studio, essentially. Right? I could think of a few dance acts that did this. You don't win a Grammy based on what you look like, though, right?
I had that exact thought as I was reading through the article and remembering my feelings back then, is that they earned this recognition off of radio play, off of popularity of this music. And it turns out that they were hideous ogres who were hiding their identity, but they needed a frontman kind of thing.
Right.
Someone earned that Grammy. Perhaps not the guys dancing and lip syncing, but the music earned the Grammy.
Sure.
They didn't take it away from them and give it to the guy that actually was doing the singing. It just took it away.
That's a good point. Who actually did the singing? Do we know?
Yeah, but you wouldn't recognize their name. Brad Howell and Charles Shaw were the two guys that were their stand-in, their vocal stand-ins.
Those are the ogres I spoke of.
Right. And it wasn't their brainchild either. If you remember, we talked about this a while ago. It's actually a cover song, right? That Frank Farian.
All music is collaborative. There's not one guy or two guys that make any song. Well, maybe unless you're Prince. But
Right.
but I mean, even so, even if you perform all the music, if you perform all the lyrics, you do all the dancing, someone else is with you, supporting you, helping you out. It just so happens that these guys didn't do the literal singing. They were on the team, though, of people that, look at it like a NSYNC or a NKOB or something. I mean, those guys got great fame. They didn't build that band themselves. Right. They auditioned to be in it. It was created by committee. Well done. They're very talented, but they get the bulk of the credit. In the case of Milli Vanilli, they did less of the work than maybe other artists would have done that were the frontmen, but they were still involved. That team earned it, I think. Yeah.
And so you could argue they were representative of the team.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think there's any reason that the Grammy should have been taken away from the actual creators and singers of the music.
Right.
Yeah. It's weird. And Frank Farian was this German producer. He actually just died about a year ago, earlier this year in January. I think it was January this year. Who took this record was from like a local DJ group called Newmarks. We talked about this a while ago. And he basically just recreated it. If you heard it, it sounds pretty much like the song that they made. He just recreated it, with his own drum machines, called in his own vocalists. He had these women sing the backup before he even found the guys to sing for the two. And they found the people who looked like them last. So why rob all those guys? But And the weird thing about it, this was Farian's idea. And while Fab Morvan and Rob Pilatus got, were just vilified. They were just, I don't know, mouthpieces or faces.
You pulled the wool over us all. You fooled us. It was nefarious. Like, we were hired.
Farian got off scot-free. Like, he wasn't dragged through the press. I mean,
because he was behind the scenes.
He wasn't discredited. It is bizarre.
Man. Will, as you describe how they acquired that song, I'm going to fourth time now, I'm going to recommend Who Let the Dogs Out documentary.
I
gotta watch it.
I recommend it too.
Watch it.
I watched it.
Oh,
yes, watch it. Watch it, Will.
Did it great? Yeah,
right,
I've watched it twice.
During the break. Then,
it's fascinating. Okay.
Morvan and Pilatus tried to, unsuccessfully, to redeem themselves in the public eye, with Pilatus dying of an accidental drug overdose in 1998 at just the age of 32.
Oops.
Before they could go on tour to promote a new album that was subsequently shelved. Now it turns out though that Morvan can actually sing. He does sing. So part of the, the mythology was they needed these guys to only be the faces because they couldn't sing. He's out there singing now and recording now, and he's touring around now doing Milli Vanilli, and I think he's got some of his own songs coming out or album.
Man, that's a shame. Their comeback tour should be called In Their Own Words.
Oh, yes.
Anyone? Right?
Yes, agree.
Didn't he appear? What's his name? The one performing now, Morvan.
Yeah,
that's
Fab.
his last name. He appeared in something, and I cannot remember what it was.
Like
movie,
a self-deprecating commercial or something he was in, right?
Commercial.
Yes.
It was like a joke on that. He
Might have been an ad, commercial, like an insurance ad or something.
Oh, yeah. And wasn't it that he mouthed the commercial, but someone else did the voice for it?
It could be.
I don't remember. It could be.
They kind of revealed at the end someone else. It was like,
but it was referential to, like, hey,
it was definitely self-effacing and referencing that, acknowledging that happened and kind of leaning into it. Yeah, certainly.
Yep.
Yeah, well, hopefully, he could turn this around. I mean, it's been so many years now, but the guy, I think both of those guys got more than they deserved as far as criticism and not enough praise for helping this music. Obviously part of it was what they looked like, of course. But they had a certain style, fashion-wise, that caught on for a little, sort of a small, time. And anyway, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Regarding Popeye, Brandon says, I can imagine a Popeye horror film easier than I can a Pooh or Bambi. Yeah, right? I mean, and the Pooh one, if you've seen the clips of it, I don't know if it's supposed to really be Pooh. I think it is. But the makeup is terrible. I mean, they made this like very thick latex looking Pooh costume.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like it looks like he's hairless almost. Like how awkward a hairless cat looks? And you're like, oh, put some fur on, dude. Like,
yeah. It's like they made it out of foam or something. Yeah. It's just smooth and,
yeah. Or if it has hair, it's like a tennis ball. It's like fuzzy is all. And I'm like, oh, bother.
Doug says Cujo 2, Pluto. Yeah, that would work. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, real dogs can be terrifying all by themselves. So it's easy to stick them in a horror movie and make them scary. Joe says it was a hoax, so everybody involved was guilty to the best decision, in my opinion. Was guilty. The best decision, in my opinion, was to take it away from all of them. I guess, but what's the hoax, though? It's just that's my point, Joe, is the hoax is only that they didn't look like those guys. But the Grammys are based on what you hear.
Yeah.
Did you take away Grammys today for auto-tune? I mean, everyone uses that, or pitch shifting or whatever. That's
a good point.
Admittedly, a bit of a reach, but it isn't. Not my voice at that point, or at least at the bare minimum, it's an augmentation of my voice that's artificial. It isn't genuinely me. And a similar thing could be said for lip syncing. That's not really my voice. It's similar to my voice, but it's not really me. And it's augmented. It's another guy, but someone performed it. You liked it and danced to it. We certainly did.
Yeah. Although still, in that sense, you're rewarding the artist for what we hear.
Right.
So if I like the way that auto-tune sounds, all right, even though it's kind of cheating, great.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, Marcus does say, ever hear Britney Spears sing without auto-tune? I have not, but I'm guessing it's bad. Okay.
Yeah. Then you go back and listen to some old artists who never had auto-tune, like they drop out all the instrumentation. Yeah. And it's like, wow, what pitch?
Yeah.
You're like a Joni Mitchell or something. You're like, what happened to this kind of talent? Where'd that go?
Right.
Well, probably, I'm trying to think, like Britney Spears came up shortly after Milli Vanilli,
Yeah.
But the what they stand for, what the controversy stands for is people want a certain aesthetic. And it seems like maybe afterwards, folks are like, all right, we screwed up with Milli Vanilli because we just had two separate people, the singing and the face. Let's just focus on face. We'll worry. The singing is whatever. We'll fix it in post.
And, shortly after the whole Milli Vanilli thing, I have a distinct memory that I was in like an all-star marching band and we performed the Easter parade or something. We marched down like Main Street in Disney. But because we took several takes of it, they recorded us out in the parking lot earlier in the day. And then they played it over the speakers and told us, don't play your instruments in the park. And I felt super like vulnerable because now everybody here watching us is hearing us not play.
Yeah.
But we were playing to our own performance.
Right.
But they had to sync it up many times, many takes and whatever. We reset and marched up Main Street like 4 times for this thing. But I'm like, Like you want to carry a sign like, this is really me playing. This is really me playing because nobody knows. And so I had that Milli Vanilli guilt on me that people think it's not me playing. Oh, they had the Marines band play and they're just some kids. No, it was us.
The curtain falls down.
That's right. Yeah. So,
I'm not a poser.
Yeah.
So I don't understand, John, though. Were you told to pretend you're playing, but just not really blow or not really hit the drums?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Exactly right.
You could probably kind of tell when somebody's not really playing their instrument.
That was my thing. And look, if you're holding a trumpet and just going clackety, clackety, clack, the guy standing next to you knows there's no sound coming out of the bell. And you just want to whisper like, it was me playing, I swear. You can't tell those thousands of people. And I remember feeling guilty thinking about the Milli Vanilli thing. It was so fresh. Maybe 2 years after that. Yeah.
All right. Oh, Joe says very soon AI will win Grammys. Well, maybe. What was that? Who we listened to? Randy Travis?
Oh, right.
That was convincing. Holy cow. He had nothing to do with it. Yeah. Who would win that Grammy?
It's modeled after him, but he can't sing it. So now can he not earn anything because it's his voice sample? That's greenfield discussions to have. Yeah.
The difference, crazy. I guess, maybe though, it wasn't entirely AI. Not the difference, but they had him sing it, but someone wrote the music, someone wrote the lyrics.
Which is very common for all sorts of songs.
Yeah.
Right. Other collaborators. There was a team involved.
All right. Hey, finally in 1980s news, 1980s Christmas horror turns 40. Now, just to give some credit where credit is due, I found this piece written by Caitlin Morton on a website called The Gutter Review, which it seems to be a defunct website now. I don't think they've updated it in a few years. But seeing what she wrote helped me organize my thoughts, and I certainly don't want to tell you everything here without at least giving credit to that for kicking this whole thing off. And look, we're going to talk about Silent Night to Deadly Night, but there's a bigger discussion to me that raises this question. Like I'm saying, what is it with what is the overlap between Christmas and horror? I'm not sure. Now, John has a theory, but I guess to get us sort of set first here, it turns out that Christmas and horror have gone hand in hand for a long time, several centuries before the birth of Jesus even. Early Europeans would celebrate the December solstice by gathering around a Yule log and sharing tales of winter, death, and rebirth. This tradition of swapping ghost stories was one of the many pagan traditions that were co-opted by Christians lasting well through the days of Victorian England.
Yeah.
You'll remember, or you'll recall, that Andy Williams even sings about, there'll be scary ghost stories and tales of the glories of Christmases long, long ago.
Many of those original stories adapted into the secret level Pac-Man, in fact.
That's right. That's the best episode.
Oh my God. I want to go watch it right now.
Ghosts, but it turned out they're not really ghosts.
They're the ghosts of Christmas past, the ghosts of Christmas present.
Yes.
There's just a fourth ghost you didn't know about, still named Clyde.
And that explains it.
Right. If Ebenezer had not been convinced after the third ghost, Clyde would have shown up. It's just, we didn't need him.
I was thinking Clyde. I was thinking Clyde more like a OB-17 kind of thing. Like, Clyde, just stay right there, buddy, okay? Yeah. We're going to take care of it. We'll be right back.
Is he scared yet?
Hang on.
You need me to try to scare him?
Oh, no, Clyde.
I can help.
The most famous of ghost stories, of course, is A Christmas Carol, which Charles Dickens published in 1843. That tale of Ebenezer Scrooge, but you know the story, of course, but it's about moral reformation, right? These ghosts, Christmas, as John alluded to, past, present, and yet to come, put him through the ringer to show him a potential, how he got where he is, and a potential future that has him going to hell if he doesn't immediately change his ways.
Right.
Morton, this writer that I mentioned here, notes that there's similarities in the notions of reward and punishment in Christianity, like those that are alluded to in Dickens, because it's hell is a Christian notion.
Yep.
And those of Christmas. In that sense, the stories use both of these mythologies use the threat of hell or some form of punishment if you've been naughty, and a reward if you've been nice. Well, not unlike the 19th century Dickens novella, the earliest Christmas horror film may actually be an adaptation of that story. In 1901, And then it seems shortly thereafter, we had a couple of other variations or another adaptations still in the earliest 20th century of that, as far as Christmas horrors go.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not until 1974's Black Christmas that studios understood the commercial possibilities of merging, Yuletide with You'll Pay, I guess.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's did you write that? Or did Milli Vanilli write that? That was good.
I was mouthing it, but there's a guy over here
Oh, someone else said it.
saying all the words. Yeah.
That was good. I'm going to give you credit. You said it. You're the front man.
He's got his hand up my shirt, working me. Shirt.
And where's the other hand?
Oh,
Warm it up.
what was he doing? Busting something earlier?
Yes. Quit busting my meat. We're recording. Now, it turns out that Black Christmas in 1974 was directed by Bob Clark, who 9 years later would direct another iconic Christmas movie, A Christmas Story.
Oh,
right.
And this film, although it came out in the 1970s, sounds very 1980s horror because it follows a group of sorority girls that are, in their sorority house for most of the movie over the holiday break. And they begin to receive obscene phone calls. And one by one, they start getting killed off. And they're trying to figure out. I feel like I shouldn't spoil it.
Yuck, 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 yuck. Oh, no.
Hey, jerky. I will say this, though, that many people regard this as one, if not the first slasher film. And if you saw it, it sets up a lot of tropes that actually came later, later in the 70s and throughout the 1980s, including an opening scene from the killer's point of view, which is very a la Carpenter's Halloween, but it'll come a few years later.
Uh-huh.
And Final Girl. There's a Final Girl.
Okay.
Yep.
And this is a spoiler, but I guess this movie's so old. They have the trope of, and trying to think if this is the first example of it. The call is coming from inside the house.
Oh.
And it's actually a really well done movie. Margot Kidder's in it. Andrea Martin, a very early role for her, is in it. Olivia Hussey's in it, who played Juliet in Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
A bunch of people are in it.
So is it the call, or it's like the ho-ho is coming from inside the chimney?
Inside your chimney. Go see the doctor.
Nice deep cut. I like
you.
that.
Yeah. I was on that hip hop show a couple of days ago.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Got you all amped up.
While Clark, in making Black Christmas, makes good use of the holiday season and creating an atmosphere that somehow lends itself to horror, he doesn't cross a certain line that bastardizes the childlike innocence of the holiday. Specifically, there is no killer Santa.
Oh, okay.
Christmas ornaments are not used as weapons. There's no Christmas puns, That, it turns out, would come a decade later in the 1980s.
Yeah, we got all that, just not with the first one.
Hang on. Right. Black Christmas may be regarded as the first slasher, which came out in 74. But I think 78's Halloween that we just mentioned is probably the real reason that we got such a run of horror movies throughout the 1980s because of its success. And it probably won't surprise you that after we had a holiday-themed horror movie in 1978, we had immediately a few Christmas horror movies in 1980, including To All a Good Night. I love these names. And Christmas Evil. That's not as clever.
Oh, nice.
There are no Shiver Me Timbers, but
No. I'm trying to think what others are out there. Like Silent Night, Deadly Night, right? You said? And,
tons of those.
Wasn't there a Bloody Night one too? Was there a Silent Night, Bloody Night?
Silent Night, Bloody Night is an older movie, right?
That's the older
that
one.
Came out in the 70s, I believe. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, and so even those movies, you probably never heard of them. They're lesser known. They've got their own cult following now. They're part of that. Sort of the zeitgeist of niche horror films, I suppose.
I think there's a Silent Night too, horror film.
Just Silent Night.
Just Silent Night. Yeah, I believe. Yeah. I'm picturing VHS box covers right now. That's what I'm doing.
It would be fun.
Jack Frost, right? He's in there.
That is a horror
like the evil
movie.
pumpkin-y one.
And that's not a horror movie. It's supposed to be like a friendly family. That's a horrifying concept, though.
Yeah.
I remember my daughter was scared of that movie. For two things. One,
he looks scary.
Like, Daddy, you could just die. That's terrifying. Two, you could come back in a horrifying looking snowman. That's horrifying. Don't do that. Just stay
Yeah.
dead.
Wait, that
It's like
happens?
Pet Cemetery level shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
That happens?
Oh, yeah.
The father dies and
that's the
comes back
premise.
as a snowman?
Yeah.
Pretty
Oh,
much. Yeah, exactly.
That's creepy. No.
It's Michael Keaton, right? Isn't it?
I think you're right.
Even those movies are not well remembered. They're certainly not known by folks like us that are, maybe a different class, not as niche of horror films. They actually gave us one of Christmas horror's finest inventions, depending upon who you are, you consider it finest, a killer Santa.
Oh, no.
And the plot template established by these movies becomes a trope, including the one that we're going to talk about. Here's the broad thing that's sort of familiar to all these films. A young boy witnesses a sexual encounter involving someone dressed as Santa. They grow up to be awkward socially.
Mm-hmm.
That man, as a man now, he dons a Santa suit and doles out punishments based on his concepts of naughty and nice.
Mm-hmm.
And the film that made this most effective use of this idea is 1984's Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Should I put this on my watch list?
Black Christmas is definitely better.
It's better? Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Silent Night, Deadly Night is, I don't know. It's not, I don't think it's a good.
Okay.
I don't want to jump you, Will, and how far ahead you're going here. Are you coming up to contemporary films?
No, I'm going to stop short of that.
Okay. Well, I mean, I just want to, because you made the connection of the killer Santa, right? And then we have whether it actually be a man dressed as Santa doing the killing, or whether it's Santa doing the killing, or whatever it is in any of these films.
Yeah.
That's kind of come full circle in a much better film as a couple of years ago in Violent Night, which
yes,
for me has become a Christmas damn tradition.
yes.
Oh.
Effectively, you have a brutal man who's capable of these things, but he's a vigilante for justice. He's a real Santa whose history I want to see. He's like super tatted up, and he has this giant hammer that he uses to wield justice. And he only gets involved because there's a horrible thing happening at the house he goes to, and he gets embroiled in it.
Oh.
And it is like, yes, Santa's a badass and he can kill, but he's not scary. He's
Okay.
actually on the side of good and taking down the bad guys. Chef's kiss, that movie.
Oh my gosh.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's basically if Die Hard starred Santa and is a horror movie. It's not a horror movie.
You got it.
It's
There you
maybe
go.
just a slightly gorier movie.
Wow.
Come
Okay.
out to the
All right.
North Pole. Have a nice time.
And my wife, so John, on your recommendation, we saw Red One a couple of weekends ago.
Oh, I
Yes.
see
And
that.
My wife the whole time was like, I hope we see J.K. Simmons, who plays Santa. I hope we get, and J.K. Simmons in real life is jacked.
Mm-hmm.
This dude's
Yep.
like in his
recently,
60s.
like in the last
Yeah.
5 years, like
Yeah.
maybe the pandemic jacked kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes, I think that's probably right. And he plays Santa and he gets kidnapped. You know that from the trailer. But my wife's like, I hope by the end of this we see him whip somebody's ass. And we saw the movie, and then it's a family friendly film. So when we got done, I said, all right, if you want to see Santa whip somebody's ass, I have got a movie for you.
Oh,
Yes.
So we're gonna sit down and watch it because I agree. I love that. And it's David Harbour. Who doesn't love David Harbour?
I know. He's spectacular. Yeah.
Hey, Brandon says that there's a guy, he says, a guy I've known since childhood wrote and directed his own Christmas horror film in 2010 called You'll Die.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. Yeah.
It has its own IMDb page. Yeah.
And I see. Just catching up on comments here. Glenn says the call is coming from inside the house, haunted me in my childhood years. And I think I most remember that from A Stranger Calls. I think it was. It's where the woman's babysitting,
Okay.
and the killer's inside the house while she's babysitting, something like that.
I think you're right.
I saw that way too young.
Right. Which is more of a thriller than a horror movie, really.
Yes.
It's a,
Right.
yeah. Mhm.
CDI Arcade says, no killer Santa, where's your Christmas spirit? Yeah, get to it. And CD does confirm that it was Michael Keaton and not Tim Allen.
Right.
That would be for a thing. Yeah. So it turns out that Silent Night, Deadly Night, the reason we're talking about it is probably because a bunch of parents got together and said, take this movie out of theaters. Like it was released.
Little did they know what was coming.
Yeah. So it turns out this was released on November 9th, 1984, the same weekend as Nightmare on Elm Street, a far superior horror movie compared to this one. And as a result of its low budget, it was believed that it would, it certainly wouldn't fare better than Nightmare. It would probably just fade into that section of the home rentals with behind the beaded curtain with the adult movies or whatever that kids are not allowed to rent without their parents. Instead, it became one of the most controversial movies of the year. And I do remember this as a kid because parents picketed theaters often, and there's photos of this you can find, they picketed theaters with their little kids.
What?
Holding signs, "We love Santa, don't do this to Santa. Take this movie out of your theater." I'm like, come on. They're going to complain that this film had a negative effect on their kids or whatever. What are you doing?
They were contributing. Oh my gosh.
Put on your mittens, we're going to go picket.
I'm tired,
Christmas
Mommy.
spirit.
You're going to fucking picket. You want a Christmas present? You're being naughty.
Oh no.
I mean, that's probably anyway. So they picketed. Yeah. They made phone calls. They wrote letters, all in an effort to get the movie pulled from theaters. And actually, regarding letters, thanks to Scream Factory's new 40th anniversary Blu-ray, we have some of the actual letters sent to the studio. So I just pulled a couple of them. There's a lot. And actually, that's where I saw the images of the kids picketing with their parents.
Picketing.
Just to give you an example of what people said. Here's one. "I want people to stop making movies of this sort. The world has enough graphic violence. Little children trust Santa Claus." Signed Karen Knowles, concerned parent. "It's an invasion of children's dreams and fantasies. It's a form of child abuse." Signed John Polajachik, school principal.
Because somebody said to bring the kids to it? No.
I was
What?
pretty sure it's rated R.
Yeah. Well,
Right? It has to be.
Yes, you're right. And they may have had a point, though. I'll tell you. Let me read these last two, and then I'll.
All right.
Here's another. "My 3-year-old son saw the television commercial." So this gets to it.
Oh.
"For Silent Night, Deadly Night last week, and now refuses to sit on Santa's lap for our annual Christmas picture this year. How dare producer Ira Barmick rob my child and others like him of their fantasy? What's next? A marauding turkey at Thanksgiving?"
Sure.
Signed.
Why not? Thanks for the idea.
Yes, Paige Hurley. I think they probably have done that since, concerned parent.
Yep.
And here's one that's actually in support of the film. "Finally, someone's showed that red-bellied bastard for what he is. A homicidal centenarian who likes kids a little too much, if you know what I'm saying." Signed the Easter Bunny. That's probably. So yeah, the uproar. So TriStar responds to the uproar. They actually give the protesters their Christmas wish, and they pulled it from theaters.
Wow.
Now, because of some contractual obligations that they had with movie theaters or movie theaters had with them, it was in the theaters for a week. It seems like there was like a minimum that they had to have it showing. So it wasn't theaters for a short time before getting pulled. But as we mentioned, the result of this happening turned what these folks were trying to, otherwise ban, into the must-see event of the year, if not the decade.
Yes.
Yeah.
They drew
Call attention to it. Sure, why not?
Nothing to see here.
Oh, wait, one more letter here. You can read this one. One more letter.
What's that?
It says, "My child and I watched this film in its entirety on wicked.com and cannot believe that you would dare to post such a film to damage my child's fragile mythos."
Yep.
It's actually, it's signed by the Jolly Green Giant.
Yes. Lawsuit pending.
Jolly Green Giant.
Yes, and you stole that from me too.
Right?
Yeah, right. He's took my ho-ho.
You took my hose.
Son of a
my hose.
bitch.
You might bring my hose back. But you're right, guys. I think it was Kat that alluded to this. It wasn't the movie that was ruffling feathers. It couldn't be because kids weren't allowed to see it. It turns out it was the advertising campaign. If you remember, in its promotional materials, the film used the image of Santa's arm, sticking out of a chimney on a roof. And in that hand, he's clutching a bloody axe.
Bloody axe. Yep.
And in the TV spots, you see Santa not only wielding that axe, you see him also draw a gun out of a holster. I mean,
really?
And otherwise, they cut between images. They don't show his face, but they cut between images of Santa's body and another person screaming. Ah!
But who's to say little Sally didn't, "Dear Santa, would you please bring me a bloody axe for Christmas?"
Yes.
And he was just delivering on the promise that he made.
Oh, that's right.
"Would you please scare and kill my daddy?"
Oh, no.
It's just, well, you've been good and you asked for it, so he's got to go.
Yeah. Yeah, it could happen. According to Collider, here's the real problem. According to Collider, those commercials had the misfortune of airing during wholesome family time, like Sunday football and early evening shows like Little House on the Prairie.
Oh, whoops. Whoops.
I remember. Yeah. It wasn't, when you were a kid, you saw horror movie commercials all the time. I told that story about The Shining one terrifying me with the blood in the elevators for the longest time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
It wasn't because I was staying up past 9 or 10 and watching TV, shows. I was like Sunday morning cartoons.
Prime time. Yep.
see, I don't remember the difference of when I was seeing commercials because the house I grew up in was so small. And our bedroom, like if you just crack the door a little bit, I'm up on my bunk bed and I had a straight shot view of the TV. So I used to peek out and watch shows that I was like supposed to be in bed. So, yeah.
Like I am in bed, but I also have good vision.
Milwaukee mother Karen Eberhardt called Silent Night, Deadly Night, quote, absolutely disgusting, saying, I was fuming. Something has to be done. Her group, Parents Against Movie Madness, I was like, PAM. That's a lousy acronym.
PAM.
They got together to protest outside Milwaukee theaters when the movie came out, leading to coverage from the CBS Evening News and People magazine. Even actor Mickey Rooney gave his 2 cents after he saw the TV ad for the film, saying, quote, how dare they? I'm all in for the First Amendment, but don't give me Santa Claus with a gun going to kill someone. The scum who made that movie should be run out of town, end quote.
Oh.
You recall Rooney voiced Kris Kringle in the Rankin and Bass animated specials. Right. Like we said earlier, not only did these protests help that movie be successful, they've now since had 4 sequels, 2 of which were in the 1980s. So there were 3 Silent Nights in the 1980s. And they've had a reboot in 2012. And we just learned, like within days, that Cineverse, the people behind the Terrifier movies, have just acquired the global rights to a new Silent Night, Deadly Night.
That's frightening a little bit, but okay.
Yeah. So, John, what's your theory? Why is this interesting?
I don't think it's a very radical theory, and it's probably the one that everyone, it's why we like sweet and sour. It's like we like the light and the dark. It's this juxtaposition of pure goodness and joy overlaid with pure evil, right? It's like they're close together, right? If you get 2 people that are they're both gray, there's no like mental, cacophony in your head. Like, wait a minute, what's happening together? So, because Christmas is all about love and peace and joy, and it's the purest of times. And then you overlay upon it brutality and cruelty and mass murder. I think it's just, I don't think it's anyone going, I sure wish there was more death in Christmas. It's really just more of it's so jarring to your mind. You're like, wait, what? And it gets people's attention. As soon as you see any kind of trailer or anything, you're like that. You're like, wait a minute, Santa's doing what? It's not like if you went, wait, this average guy's killing people. Okay. But if it's Santa, well, now, it's so weird and it's so disharmonious kind of in your thought processes that it's sensational and it gets your attention and people go and see them and watch them and it perpetuates. It's a pretty simple theory, I guess. It's not that radical.
What about the Krampus, with whom I admittedly don't know a lot about, but that's, a whole tradition over in Europe. And that's scary. It's like
the flip side of Santa, right? Does he punish the boys that are on the naughty list? And you're like, or the boys and girls that, you either get a gift or you get your ass whipped by this monster. Those are your choices. Yes. Maybe I will wash the dishes and bring in the firewood.
Yeah, and if you've seen what Krampus looks like, again, you can see the sort of parallels between, Christmas mythology and Christianity.
Sure.
He's cloven hooved, horned, kind of goat. Yeah. Visage. Yeah.
And we have had Krampus films.
Yes, I'm aware.
And he may or may not have a cameo in Red 1.
Yeah. If I get to see it, I'll keep my eyes open.
Oh, you'll get to see it.
It was definitely fun. I had a good time seeing it.
I don't know where it got all the hate from. I thought it was charming.
Yeah. It's like you either like those kind of light and fluffy Christmas feel-good movies or you don't, I guess. Mm-hmm. It's exactly what it was set out to be, or promoted as.
Yeah. And I don't know that was the time, but I would love someday to run Red 1 through your litmus test of, is this a Christmas movie? Because I think it misses on several criteria.
Oh, wow.
But it's still...
I got to think about that. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, Kat.
Yes, Will?
Was our show. I give you enough time to get your shit together.
Was brought to you, thanks in part.
Right back at you, Will.
To our early adopters, Karen Flieger and Rick Parker. And thank you especially to our Secret of Our Success level Patreon supporters, Matt Marino, John Henderson, Brandon Greer, Nick Guillory, Marcus Taylor, and Tony Gray.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of, is it a Christmas movie? I see Glenn on here says, is Gremlins a horror Christmas movie?
Right.
Like and he says in parentheses, like the Die Hard debate.
Mm-hmm.
I think, according to my criteria, I should probably re-up that video that in our discussions about it. Gremlins is not a Christmas movie for lots of reasons. I don't know that folks would even regard it as a horror movie, right? I mean, it's comedy horror.
Yeah.
But it's more dark comedy.
Shenanigans.
Than it is horror even.
Yep.
I mean, like, are you ever really scared of the Gremlins?
No.
As a kid, I don't even remember feeling like, oh no, are the Gremlins like lurking?
Like not even Spike. He's just like, he makes a mess.
Yeah.
Is what he does.
I mean, when he jumps out of that Christmas tree, it's pretty frightening, but.
He's mostly just a nuisance.
Stripe. Yeah.
My cat has scared me in the same way in the past. So.
Yes. Holy shit, Jesus! Hey guys.
And he will scratch. So
unlike John's cat, you guys are so kind to us. No scratching. And you haven't even been declawed. You may have been spayed and or neutered. I don't know. I'm not going to ask.
Well, don't get too personal.
What am I talking about? I don't know. I lost the thread. But what I want it's gratitude. What I'm talking about is gratitude, obviously. It's how grateful we are for your continued love and support. We can feel it. We can feel it in your monetary contributions to our show that help us pay the bills to actually produce this every week. And we can feel it in your love by joining us like you do. So many of you do. Every week, Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and Facebook. Hey, if you want to help the show do any of those things, come hang out. Yep. Go to patreon.com/1980s now. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on YouTube. Write a review. Recommend us to a friend. Share a post. Anything like that. Many of those things cost you $0 and very little time, but are a tremendous help to us continue to build the 1980s Now family.
For sure.
Yes.
All right. Hey, we will talk to you next time on 1980s Now.
Until next time.
Ho, ho, ho.
Now it sounds so much like Green Giant.
That sounded exactly like the Green Giant.
That's what I was going for.
Oh, okay.
Yes.